My friends, ever thought of having 57 properties by the age that you get to round about 67? Well, in this video here, I am going to be sharing with you a very cool story of someone that I know, someone that is very dear to me, and he's basically just left 57 properties to his wife and 2 kids. And guess what? Those 2 kids now are not even in the country. Well, my friends, as you know me, my name is TJ, and why am I telling you the story is because I can tell you that life can change if you're to do property investments. But for some of us, we take it as a sprint, and we want to make all the money now, but actually real estate is a bit of a marathon game. I'm going to introduce you guys to a guy called Mark, right? We're just going to call him Mark for today. And for some of you, you may know him because he was a very cool friend of mine, and he was a business pastor of mine. And I say he was a cool friend of mine, even though he was older than me, 67 by the time he went to see Jesus. We used to hang out together. We used to go to networking sessions together. We used to go out and look out for deals. Why am I telling you this story? I am telling you that this story because a lot of us, we go in and sit under a tree and we wonder, it's a cool shade up in here. And we're wondering, how can we create our own shade? Well, the best time that you could have created that shade or that tree was 20 years ago, but actually the next time is now. And I'm going to share with you guys the story of Mark, how he got into the game. I didn't know Mark 67 years ago because obviously, we're in different time zones. I wasn't even born at the time. But I met him, I think, round about when he was 60. That's when I met him, round about 58, I think, when he was 58 years. And he was telling me at the time that he was about to retire in the next 2 years. He was going to take a chill pill. And basically he had had an accident at his workplace before. So he was busy consulting at the time. And let me introduce to you to who Mark is. Mark is a property investor. He didn't start off as a property investor. Mark is a married guy, 2 kids. And at the time that I started knowing Mark, both his kids was around about 19 and 21 at the time. So obviously now they've grown. That's plus 6-7 years. And I lost Mark recently. So this is quite an emotional video for me to do because I'm sharing you a real life story of someone that I've journeyed with and someone that we can learn from. I think for me, the reason why I'm doing this video to me, is that we can relive his legacy, but outside just reliving his legacy, also to showcase that the property real estate investment, it's an amazing reward for those that are wanting to stick in the game and those that are wanting to grow it at a nice slow pace and who are wanting to build it carefully. He left 57 properties. Now, when I met Mark at the time, I think he had done around about 30 to 40 deals at the time. Mark is, I can call him, he was an engineer by profession. And he had rose up the ladder from, being as a junior consultant in the engineering space. And he went on to become a senior consultant. By the time I met up with him, he was a senior consultant. He had worked for most of his life in the municipality. So this is not an engineer who is out there making the big bucks. This guy was working for the municipality. Over and above that, he was married to his wife, Pam. And Pam, she was a psychologist. She started working out in the hospitals. And from there on, she rose up the ladder and then she became to have her own consulting firm that she still runs up until today. So she's semi-retired. So she kind of like sees clients half the day, and half the day she does her own thing. And she consults with clients locally and overseas, which is also amazing. Technology has allowed us to do that, and she's well sought after. Now, the 2 of them started off on this journey as husband and wife. And the 2 of them, they had no money at the time. As Mark explained to me the story, I think it was on our second date that we met. And I'm calling it a date because by the time that Mark started investing with me, we had met around about 5 times. And Mark was just asking me random questions, and I hated those questions because I knew that he was an investor, and I knew I wanted to get into deals with him, but he didn't want to get into the deals. He wanted a friend, and he wanted to understand a little bit more about me before he jumped into bed. And that's a lesson for many of us. We jump into bed so quickly before we actually understand what is involved with the next person. And then we went on to spend another round about 30 days doing a contract, and this contract was basically to see how our relationship was going to work. And that's another lesson for you. Many of us, we jump into relationships without actually getting into the contracts, the nitty-gritty. And Mark was one of my first investors as I was jumping into property investment. Many of you would know that when I started off, I didn't have money. I didn't have cash, right? And I was actually in debt, bad debt of around about 5 million. And Mark understood me, and without understanding me, I don't think he would have gone into deals. But further to that, he also understood me, and he saw the opportunity in both of us working together. And we did our first deal, and our first deal was a 2-bed, 1-bath. And I bought that property for 160,000 rand. I put in 1,000 rand of my own money into that deal. Mark put in the rest. We renovated that property for around about 50,000. It was down in Kempton Park. And then bingo, we then later sold it for after about 2 years. But before that, we rented it out for 5,000 rand. Woohoo! Yeah, you can clap hands for me. That was a good deal. You missed an opportunity. Come on. You can tell me in the comments, TJ, that was a smashing good deal. I know. Right. But anyways, right. Mark started investing when he was 25 years old. So as he was 25 years old, Mark tells me that he went out and he bought a council house. So the council was rolling out houses, and we can call them as RDP houses today, whatever you want to call them today. But basically, he bought his first council house back in the days, right? So you can do the maths. If he died at 67 in 2023, and he died by the time he was 67, you do the maths there. When he was 25, you see when he first bought his first property. He then realized that the council houses were not giving him a nice yield. So his next deal, the next year, so he bought the first property when he was 25, and when he was 26, he bought a freestanding house. And when he bought a freestanding house, he realized there's a lot of maintenance that he needs to be doing there, and he didn't have the time because both him and his wife were both employed. The wife was a psychologist at the hospital, and he's an engineer at the municipality, so he didn't have the time. So he started to buy in the block of flats. Not the block of flats. Remember, he's just an engineer, a psychologist, and he bought 1 unit, which was now, it took him 4 years to get to that 1 unit. And then thereafter, he sort of like bought 1 property every year. And some years he would skip, and they would go on a holiday. But basically, by the time that I met Mark, he was sitting on around about 30 properties at the time. Funny story is that I think on our first year, I said to Mark, he was telling me that he wants to sell off some of his properties. And I said to him, okay, great, let me help you. I'm very young at the time, and we're driving around. And as we drove around a street, Nelson Mandela Street. We pass a Winnie Mandela Street. We pass another street, a King George Street. We pass another street. So we keep on going in a circle, and I realize, what's happening here with Mark? So I said to Mark, brother, it looks like we are in the same circle here. We're just going past the same street. And he says to me, I can't find my property. And I said, what do you mean you can't find your property? And this is the time when, I think at the time when this happened, I had one property for an investment, which is the one that I had done with Mark, and I bought like 3 other properties, and those 3 other properties were all a flop. I had not made any money out of them. So this is my own. I'm very young in my game here, and Mark is like a senior to me. 30 properties, and we're going to see his property, but we can't find it. What the hell? I came home, my friends, and I said to Jenna, I want to be like Mark one day, where I can grow up and I can't find my own property. And it was just amazing to me. But it was an amazing moment for me from a point of, is this guy getting old that he can't find his property? That was not it. It was more of, flip, he's got so many properties and he hasn't been out there. And that was another lesson of mine a little bit later as I grew older in my craft, is that for me, all my properties that I have, I try to go and see them twice a year in different seasons. So I try to go and see them in the rainy season. I see how they're behaving. And I also try to see them in the summer when it's not raining heavily, so that I can see also what is happening on that property. So that's another lesson there. So you can see, my friends, sometimes you don't have to have like a hard mentor. Sometimes you get to learn by being in association with other people. So in this case here, Mark is now my investor, and by association, I am learning from him on what he's doing wrong, and now I'm getting it right. Yeah? So sometimes we just don't have to go and like, let's go and look out for, maybe you can't afford a mentor, or maybe you can't afford a coach. But I also think that if you're taking your property business very seriously, you need to have a coach. And my friends, you can jump onto the link below, and basically we can afford, or we can offer you a coaching program where you can be able to learn with us and grow your own business. But at 57 properties, right, he is growing his business and he has continued to work. Now, I meet Mark now 7 years before he dies. And out of that, we create our own relationship, and I became his first business partner outside his wife. Now, I get to understand how Mark bought these properties. Firstly, Mark had a trust. You might be asking yourself, what is a trust? Well, my friends, welcome to the TJ tribe. And this is what we call structuring. It's an entity. So basically, he had a trust, and in the trust, he had a company, and the company owned all of their old 30 properties that they owned at the time. I then said to him, Mark, why do you have a trust? And he explained to me, and he says to me, TJ, when I die one day, everything will continue with my wife, Pam. And when I die, it's just that another trustee or another manager in the work employment has died. So I don't have to pay a lot of money to SARS because of my death, and all these investments will continue. It made me wonder. And then I went back to school, and I'm like, right. Whilst I was in class, they were talking about trust and so on. And my friends, that information whilst I was in class, whoop, it went over my head. Why? Because I was learning it whilst I was in class, but I wasn't prepared for it. So sometimes what happens, my friend, is that you get the information, but if you're not prepared for it, you may not take any action around it, or you might not even comprehend it. So I am challenging you that each time you are taking notes on a video like this one, or at any other seminar or any other schooling that you are, revisit your notes to make sure that you've got some actionable actions. So in other words, I did write down the notes of the trust and everything else, but I never followed through on it. And that's another point, a lesson for today. How best can you follow up? Remember, we're just talking here about the journey. We're celebrating the life of Mark, where he eventually then left 57 properties to his wife, Pam, and his 2 kids, right? And I'll tell you, and as I continue telling you the story, let me go back to the partnership story. So now I understand this, and he says to me, so how did you buy your property? You told me that you bought a farm before. At the time I had bought a farm, and that farm was now almost going in for some repossession, likely because I was working for the bank. It didn't get repossessed, but it became a bank seller assisted. And basically the bank helped me to sell off my farm, and we managed to get a good buyer in good time. So that debt was quickly gone. And I said to Mark, I bought it in my name. And he said to me, what if things go bad? And I said to Mark, well, things are bad already. And he says, how bad are they? I explained to Mark, and he says to me, well, let's meet next week at Wimpy. Oh, my friends, I hate Wimpy. It's not my thing, right? I'm not saying Wimpy is not good. I'm not saying that. It's good food, but it's not just good food for this guy, right? But anyways, let me tell you something, my friends. I used to meet with Mark every Saturday morning. We used to have breakfast at Wimpy. I almost got converted. Yeah, I almost started liking Wimpy at some point. But then I found my own dish, if you may call it that I used to eat. And basically, our tradition with Mark is that we'll meet out at Wimpy on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And at the time, we used to meet at a specific Wimpy in Cresta. If you guys know that area, there was a Wimpy just outside the garage. There was a garage, engine garage. That's where we used to meet. Or would meet at Northgate. And those are the two places that we used to meet at different times. So we would alternate that, changing scenery. When you change the scenery, you get creative. And both of us, we knew that. That's why we used to change that. So nonetheless, my Wimpy story, my friends, is, in other words, if you want us to go out, don't take me out to Wimpy. I ain't coming. So now that Mark is gone, I ain't coming. No Wimpy for me. But if I'm on a long journey driving to Pietermaritzburg, to Cape Town or wherever with my family, sometimes Wimpy is the only thing that's there. Hey, we'll buy it. You know what I mean? But anyways, let's forget the story about Wimpy. Let's come back. Now, Mark now says to me, let's meet at Wimpy. And at Wimpy, he then starts asking me questions, hard questions. And he says to me, so why did you buy this farm in your personal name? I'm like, the estate agent asked me to just sign some paperwork, so I signed it. How else was I supposed to buy it? And Mark says to me, you could have bought it in a company. Yes, I could have. I had a company at that time. But I didn't buy it in the company. So I said to Mark, well, I didn't buy it in the company because my company it's not trading. It just started. And they said, but you could have. And I said, is that allowed? At the banks. Now here's the funny story in hindsight. I am a banker at the time. And I'm asking another investor, is it allowed from a banking perspective? You know why? Because my estate agent at the time had told me that can't do. It has to be you. But anyway, I didn't even ask at the time. So, the conversation didn't go anywhere that far. But here's the thing, my friend. If you do not have the right information, you can't challenge it. So today, as I'm just talking about Mark, I think we're getting some education here. Let me know what you're getting in the comments. That's number one. But number two, we're just also reminiscing on Mark. He was a good guy. It is what it is. We're all going to go to see Jesus at some point. But I do think that all of us, we're all Christians, but none of us wants to die, isn't? But I'm okay with dying. I'm happy if Jesus calls me today. I'm happy. I'm in a good space. I'll be happy to go to heaven. Yeah, I will be totally happy. But anyway, let's go on to talk about the 57 properties that Mark bought. Now, it is an amazing space going to heaven knowing that you left 57 properties. Come on, who doesn't want that? you know that your life, you have made a great impact. 57 families, you are providing housing to those families. 57 of them. That's a good number. And over and above that, you have a business of 57 rental income that's coming through to you. So let me just give you an insight on this. I did an exercise because now he's gone, right? So me and Pam, together with the attorneys, we needed to wind off on the business that we had. And we needed to wind off in her business. So I was asking her because the two kids are overseas and she's also elderly. She's about 65, 66. Yeah, they've got a year difference. And I was asking her, so what do you want to do? And she was saying, you know, TJ, you probably need to help me off selling off. And here's the other thing. I met Pam not for the first time after the funeral. I met her, I think it was in year number 1 of our relationship. And within that, we had just had conversations here and there. So by the time that Mark went to see Jesus, I also had a relationship with Pam. So when we were talking now about rounding off, she was like, TJ, do you want to buy this thing from me? I don't want to manage this. I don't want to. But the bottom line, when I looked at the entire portfolio, I then said at average per house or per property, she's banking around about 5,000 rand per property. She has 57 properties. You do the maths on that. How much is that? Boom! How much? You know, pull out your calculator. Yeah, 57 times 5,000. How much? What? 285,000. My friends, that's how much money she is getting every 30 days. Out of them working through the years from when she and her husband was 25 and up to the time when he went on to see Jesus at 67. And they are elderly. They haven't hit 80. And now they are both their kids. The one child is gone to Thailand. He went to become a teacher, an English teacher in Thailand. And he's been there now for the last 10 years. He's on full boarding of everything. So guess what he does with his money? He just sends it back home. His baby brother has gone to England to do some studies. So he's on his, I think he's doing a master's of some sort in the UK at a prestigious university. And they can afford it. Now here is the question I want to ask of you, my friend. This is an amazing story of someone that I personally journeyed with. This guy here, he is not different from you and me. He's an engineer. Oh, okay, fine. He might be an engineer and you might be a school teacher. But the bottom line is, he was an employee just like you. His missus, also an employee just like you. And then thereafter, they took sacrifices. Every year, they would buy, let's just say at average, every 3 years, they would buy a property. If you do the maths correctly, you know, it's every second year they would actually buy a new property. That's what it basically means. I don't think that when he started buying some of these properties, all of them were cash flowing, because at some point he started buying buildings. So at the time that I met up with him, we actually went to buy our first property. Was a 2-bed 1-bath. Our second property that we bought was another 2-bed 1-bath. The third property that we bought was a house. And this house here had 4 cottages on it. So which meant that our income, we spent on a property around about 700,000. We bought it in Boksburg. I remember, like out in the Boksburg side. And that property, it was giving us around about 32,000 at the time because of the multiple cottages that were there. And when we bought it, it was run down. Like seriously run down. Okay? But here is the thing, my friends. Sometimes some of these rundown properties will give you a little bit of life. We later on sold it a few years later because we wanted the money to go into a bigger building. The fourth property that we bought was a block of flats of 6. And then we went on to buy a block of flats of 12. As you can see, as our relationship was maturing, we were going bigger and bigger. So here is the thing, my friend. Mark started off at 25. I find him in the game literally around about 30 years later. And he partners up with me. Why did he partner up with me? Mark understood exactly what to do, how to do it. But at the time, Mark was just becoming slow in his ability. Right? Remember I told you he had an accident at work. He understood that he had money and he still wanted to grow his business. And that's what he did. He used me to become his partner and to become his fresh mind and to be his runner on the ground because I was young, vibrant, hungry. What did I say? I was young, vibrant, hungry. And for that, together with his expertise, wisdom, the Bible speaks of young people and the elderly people that they need to be working together, right? The young are strong. The older, full of wisdom. Put the two together. They run faster. Okay? And I'm not saying that go and find your own elderly investor. That's all I'm saying. I'm just telling you of my journey with my partner that I did. Maybe your journey actually is with an uncle in your own family. Or an aunt in your own family. She has the money, but she doesn't know what to do. Or maybe even your grandmother. She's got the loot, but she doesn't know what to do with the money. And you are learning here. So you become the hind legs. And you run fast. You do these deals. They give you the wisdom. But that is also if you have a heart that is teachable. If you got a mind that is teachable. And obviously, likewise onto the other people. So at 60, we journey together for 7 years. And we do plus minus 6 deals together. Amazing journey that I had with Mark at this moment. But this was, I'm talking about 6 years outside of COVID, right? So if we include COVID, our relationship was basically about maybe 4 years, right? Because we can't really count COVID. 2 years gone by. Like, who counts COVID? Even my own birthday, I didn't count it. I never had a birthday during COVID. So, my age is minus 2 years. Yeah. You ladies, you can bang that. Tell them that Uncle TJ said so, right? Because we never had any birthday. So no numberings on the birthday. Yeah, I said it. Now, why am I sharing all of this with you, my friends? Number one, resilience. Resilience. This guy started at 25 years old. At 67, he went to see Jesus. 57 properties later, 5,000 rand a unit, 285,000 coming into your bank account today. Maybe your mother is 67. What did she do? She didn't do this, right? She's probably on Sasa right now. Oh, TJ, that's a low blow, bro. That's a low blow. Don't go there. Now, I'm just saying. But you do not have to be like them. Come on. You don't have to be like them. You can change the narrative. You can start learning. It's a brand new year. You can start learning and you can be your own Mark. Mark wasn't buying properties for 100 million like many of us want to do. We want to get into deals for 30,000, for 30 million, for 40 million, and we haven't even done one deal for 1 million. Right? This guy here, 57 properties, 5,000 rand each, 285,000 that's coming through to him, to his family now. He's long gone. And you might be asking yourself, but TJ, hold on. So, seeing that he died, what's going to happen to the debt? Oh, whoa. It becomes more interesting now, right? My friends, let me tell you something. There is what is called life policy. Yeah, So each time you buy a property, it comes with its own life policy to cover you. So when you die, the life policy pays for that bond. And the property becomes free of charge. No bond to you. And you own it. 100%. Come on. Do you have to die at 67 for this life policy to kick in? No. No. You die at 25, at 22, life policy kicks in. But actually, in real life, I was just throwing out there, in real life, most of his properties were paid up. Because what Mark started doing is that when he got to around about 40, he didn't, 40 years, that is, he realized that he was going to go into early retirement. He wanted to go into early retirement. And then he had an accident round about at 55, I think he said. And at that time, he had a bit of a payout. But then he realized that maybe this payout he should be able to, maybe should pay out some of his properties that are on loans. So he reduced his book credit by almost to around about 20%. So he still borrowed some money, but he was borrowing kind of like 20% to the value of his business. So let's assume his business value, all of his properties were worth 10 million. He only had debt of 2 million. Now, my friends, at 2,285,000 a month, come on. You can service that debt like easy. It's like a walk in the park. You know what I mean? But here is the thing. I want to reinforce something with you today. Right. Mark started with what he had. Number one. He started off young, at 25. He started off with his missus. He was able to be resilient in the journey. You tell me that Mark didn't have problems going on to all these years. What's 67 minus 25? Let me see. 67 minus 25, 42. So that's 42. So in the 42 years of investments, so you tell me he never had a problem. Let me tell you one of the problems that he told me. I was buying a property, a building in Berea. And Mark says to me, you'll never buy a property in Berea. I said, why not, Mark? He says, between the late 90s and into the early 2000s, Mark had bought a 12 building, a 12 unit block of flats there. And basically what happened is that the property got hijacked. And when it got hijacked, he would go to the local police and the local police couldn't help him. So for a long time, this property, rates and taxes was on him, water usage was on him, electricity eventually got cut, and then eventually after about 6 years, right? After about 6 years, he regained his property with a bit of muscle, with hard evictions and so on. And at that time he was saying, TJ, I almost thought this property thing doesn't work. It was one big bad apple that was weighing me down. And also, he had actually borrowed some money from Nedbank at the time. Woo! Right. Now let's just do the maths here, my friends. Let's just take prices that we know today. It's a block of flats of 12. And let's just say that property was per unit, let's just say worth 350,000, right? So he basically paid 4.2 million. And then later on it got hijacked. So what does he say to the bank? I can't pay for it? Well, the bank wants his money. So what does he say to the bank? I don't know. I asked the question, what did you do? He says, I serviced the loan. Because I wanted them to continue borrowing me some more money, so I serviced the loan. I said, even though you didn't have any tenants coming, even though you didn't have any money coming in from the building. He says, I couldn't. I continued fighting TJ with legal, with evictions. Eventually, when I got it right after 6 years, I just then bought that property back. I got it back, and I sold it. And I said to myself, I do not want to get involved in barrier anymore. I've given you some tips. Now, number 5. Did Mark give up in his 40 years of investing? He didn't. Where is the reward now? Well, the reward is simple. He is now with Jesus. He is Mrs. Pam, is banking 300,000 every 30 days. Over and above that, his 2 kids, he's got 2 boys. The boys are in a financial good position where they are. Here is the thing, my friend. Someone has to take the risk. Someone needs to take the sacrifice. And the question, my friend, is, are you that person who is going to take the sacrifice? Some of you, you know me. My father kind of like, he came through and impregnated my mom and left. So maybe Jonah says he went to buy some Coca-Cola. He's coming back. And he hasn't come back. And here I am, I'm in my 40s. So I have no backup, my friends. I am the backup. Right? So when we're speaking to someone like Mark, who's now gone, he was the backup. Right? So if we are looking at yourselves as the backup, you have no background or whatever it is, and you are the financially strong person, and you're only financially strong because of the active income that you've got, then my friends, you are at a great risk. How about becoming a Mark? Mark started off 1 deal at a time. Not 20, not 50, not 100. By the time he died, he had 57 of them. So what is stopping you? In the comments, my friends, I am going to leave a link. And all you have to do is click on the link and follow it where it says, I want a mentor, a coach. Click on it, add your details. I might just be able to help you. Will I be able to help you so that you can earn 285,000? Maybe. Can you surpass that? Maybe. Right? Just depends on your resources. Just depends on how hard you want to work. Mark bought 1 property every 3 years. How about 1 every 3 years? Maybe your resources are even different. You're in a better financial position than he was. My friend, this is the story of my friend, Mark. And as we pay tribute to him, I have many fond memories with Mark. It gives me great pleasure to speak about him. Even though it has been emotional, but it has given me great pleasure so that I've been able also to teach you about a couple of things that I learned from Mark that I am continuously doing. Technology has also helped me throughout the years. I've been able to manage my businesses much better than what Mark used to do because he was a pen and paper guy. You know, we go to a meeting, Mark would print the email that you sent to him, Mark would come with them at the meeting printed. You know what I mean? He was just that guy. So respect to Mark, rest in power, brother. And I think the challenge to you and me is how best can we grow our own businesses. So in the comments, let's chat and let's hang out and let's grow our business. 57 properties, 5,000 rand each, 285. The widow, 2 kids, financially stable. That's what we're after. How about their financial muscle power? Let's just say each property is worth how much? Let's just say each property is worth 500,000. I don't want to shock many people of you. 500,000 times 57. They are worth 30 million rand. That's how wealthy they are. I leave it there. My name is TJ. I'll check you out on the next video. This is just to challenge you to say you can do it too if Mark can do it.